Alright, hello everyone. Welcome again to another video of biological topics. So, in this video, we will going to talk about some perception about how organism changes over time. Alright, so in our previous video that we have discussed last time, or that you have watched last time, so it talks about the different evidences that living things, or there are living things that lives in the past. All right, so these evidences are perfectly stored or perfectly preserved in fossils and different stuffs like in DNA and so on and so forth. All right, so now, in this lesson that we have here today, we will going to discuss what are the perception of some notable biologists in terms of how organism evolved through time, or evolutionary changes in an organism. So, our topic today is titled Theories of Evolution. Alright, so we will focus on the two theories of evolution here, coming from Lamarck, and the other one is from Darwin. Alright, so let's get started. Okay, so if you take a look at this giraffe, so you will wonder and ask question to yourself, why does the giraffe have long necks, whereas other animals cannot or do not have this kind of particular trait? Alright, so why does it have a long neck? Does it have something to do with the environment that this organism lives with? Alright, so the other one, why do gazelles, like the one that we have right here in this picture, so why do gazelles run faster, alright, compared to other animals? Alright, so why is it? Alright, next one. Alright, so why do zebras have this coloration? So the black and white pattern that we have here, why does this zebra exhibit this kind of coloration? For what purpose? How did it came to be? Alright, so those were the questions that we will going to answer in this particular section. So our first biologist that we have right here is the one who created this idea, and the one who explained this idea, why giraffe have long necks, why zebras have certain patterns of black and white coloration in its body, and also it will explain why some animals run faster while others don't. Alright, so we were going to discuss what are these Lamarck's theory that he is talking about, and how does it explain these particular changes in the organism. Alright, so we have Jean-Baptiste Lamarck. So he is a French naturalist, and he's the one who coined the idea that evolution occurred and proceeded in accordance with natural laws. Alright, so meaning to say that the nature, so the organism, in order for an organism to survive, so it must follow whatever nature gives to it. Alright, so that's the natural law. So okay, so what we have right here is the first theory that he proposed that will explain why giraffes have long necks. So this is the theory of use and disuse. Now, according to this theory, alright, so it says that those body parts which get least, which are used or which is not frequently used, will get disappeared in the course of time. So meaning to say, if I have a body part, that I use every time, or every day of my life, alright, so that body part that I have will get improve, and then it will grow in a more advanced, or my body part, or that body part will grow more advanced than in any other body part that I have. So because of one thing, because I frequently use that body part in every daily activity that I have. Okay, so just like what Lamarck says here in the theory of use and disuse, the part that is least used will get disappear over time. So this will explain why the snakes doesn't have legs, because according to him that these snakes long time ago have limbs, then they tend to slither around instead of using this limb. So these limbs are not used frequently, and then over time this particular part tends to disappear. So that's the reason why snakes today have no limbs at all, alright, for movement. They just slither around. Alright, so in this case, the man over here, alright, the man on the picture, so he thought that this theory is somehow true. What happens is he will just he will start to move his legs from now, or from this point in time, and to make his legs not to disappear. All right. So with this particular idea, it is also this also explains why giraffe have long necks. Now, according to Lamarck, the giraffes long time ago are contain very short necks. They have very short necks, and over time, since the food that they have is on the top of the on the treetops, the leaves on the treetops. All right, so they tend to stretch their necks over time. All right, so they tend to stretch their necks over every time that they reach their food. So upon stretching and stretching and stretching of their necks, at the end of the day, all right, at the end of the day, the giraffes now have long necks. All right, so the one that you see right here, from shorter ones to longer ones. Okay, so the reason is due to stretching to reach the food that they have, or that they need rather. Alright, so then this is what the theory of use and disuse coined by Lamarck is all about. So over time, as the organism use that part frequently, it is getting more and more developed than the other body parts. So it is more improved. Then those parts that are not used will get disappear over time. Okay, so now the next theory is, according to him, that these characteristics that are obtained through the use and disuse of that particular part, for example, the neck of this giraffe. So, according to this theory, that when the giraffe already have long necks, upon doing stretching job during eating, okay, so what happens here is this particular trait, which is already acquired during the process, during the first one here in the theory of use and disuse, this particular trait, which is the long necks, okay, so this acquired characteristics will be inherited by the offspring. So meaning to say, there will be no offspring that are short necks. All are long necks. So because they already attained that one. So from the word itself, acquired. So meaning to say, upon acquiring this particular advantage, or any body part that is already an advantage, so after acquiring this particular part, it will now be transferred to the offspring. Okay, so it means that the offspring will not have any problem at all reaching the leaves on the treetops. So because it has already long neck. All right, so let us put this. Let's just put this in this situation. For example, if you cut the tail of a dog, so according to these characteristics, the dog acquired a severed tail. Alright, so the dog already has no tail. So meaning to say, if that dog produce an offspring, then the next generation of dogs will now have no tails. Alright, so you get what I mean? So what is it is that is all about the acquired inheritance of characteristics. So meaning to say, according to Lamarck, whatever is acquired, it will be inherited by the offspring. Alright, so okay, so before we go to Charles Darwin, so let's analyze first this particular theory by Lamarck. Okay, so during his time, what are the misconceptions during that time? Since they are limited to some ideas during their time. There are no DNA, there are no ideas that the DNA exists, alright? So, meaning to say that this particular idea by Lamarck is only just a hypothesis, and it was supported by minimal evidence. That is the reason why some critics are having doubts if these particular theories, the use and disuse and the acquired inheritance of characteristics, are supposedly true. Alright, so but in our modern times, some modern geneticists are already finding out some resemblance in this theory that Lamarck created centuries ago. Alright, so now modern geneticists point out that the organism can change its phenotype without changing its genotype. Alright, so we call that epigenetics. So along the way, modern geneticists connect this particular theory by Lamarck to what they call epigenetics. So as we all know, epigenetics is the ability, or this is the study on how the phenotype of the organism change without changing the genotype of its genotypic characteristic. Alright, so meaning to say there is somehow a resemblance with this particular theory by Lamarck with our modern understanding with regards to genetics. But still, alright, it goes to one point. Even though there are doubts in this particular theory, what Lamarck is trying to tell us, if the organism tends to adapt to the environment, it should possess this particular characteristic in order to survive that particular environment. For example, the gazelle runs faster. It's because it should adapt. So that is why the gazelle always use its leg to run away from its enemy. So every time that the gazelle uses its leg, it gets improved and improved over time. Then what happened along the way, if the gazelle will have offspring, the next generation of gazelles will now have an improved run or improved muscle, legs in the muscle, so that it can run faster than its previous ancestor. Alright, so that is how. Alright, so in this case, that is the reason why there are some questions here in this theory created by Lamarck. Okay, so with that, there's another biologist in the name of Charles Darwin. So he made some important discoveries regarding how organism tends to change over time. Alright, so he coined the idea that all species of life have descended over time from a common ancestor. So in this particular research, so he gave an idea that all organisms here on Earth have one common ancestor, or all organisms of different sizes and shape have their one common ancestor. Alright, next one. And he gave an idea on how evolution occurs in an organism. Alright, so let's take a look at his work. Alright, so his work, how should I say this one? He didn't discover the evolution just by staying at home. He went around the world, and he by riding or on a voyage, on his voyage along with the crew of the HMS Beagle. So this is the HMS Beagle. Alright, so together with the crew of the HMS Beagle, they survey all the land, alright, that they all places that they explore. And together with Charles Darwin, he be able to study this particular these places and find something relevant or related to what they call evolution. So alright, so he's the one who found some fossils of large mammals, and he found out also that these mammals that were large are already extinct, which is somehow a resemblance of a modern day version, which is very, very small. So he just have an idea about this particular situation. All right. Now, upon reaching the Ecuador, he traveled to these islands in the Pacific, which is somehow the point, or these islands give his particular idea on what evolution is all about. All right, so he went to these islands and found out some animals that are exclusive in this island, which is different from the animals that are found in the mainland. So, for example, we have this tortoise that we have right here. So this is a land-based turtle, right? So, and they are very large compared to their relative, which lives on the mainland. And what he noticed here, what Darwin noticed in this particular animal, is that in every island, he noticed that the tortoises in every island are different from each other. Alright, so even though they are the same tortoise, but they differ on the shape of the shell or the carapace on its back and the way it is oriented. Okay, so he noticed that there is something more profound, or there is something profound on these differences. Why should someone make these differences on this particular organism? Alright, next one. He noticed some iguanas that we have right here, this one. He noticed these animals and he compared this one to its mainland relative, which is the tree iguana, and he has an idea that it is almost the same, but it is completely different on how it behaves and where it lives. So in this case, the marine iguana that you have right here, it doesn't go on treetops just to eat, but it dives underwater, and it has a special glands here that enables it to survive this salty water that we have right here. And it doesn't eat leaves and insect. These animals eats algae, which is attached through some rocks, and which gives Darwin a complete insight that this organism is different from its mainland relative, which is the tree iguana. Alright, this is one of the organisms that gives Charles Darwin an idea on how organisms change over time. So he studied this group of birds, which he called these finches. All right, and upon studying this bird, he found out that although these birds are the same, he found out that the beaks of these birds are completely different from each other and for certain purpose. All right, he found out by taking some sample of these birds and bringing them back home, and he found out on his studies that these particular birds have differences in terms of what type of food that they eat. So meaning to say, in every island, these birds are different due to the food that they eat. So meaning to say, they are varied. Alright, these particular finches are varied based on what the environment can give them. Like, example, food. Alright, so other group of finches that he noticed also differs from the previous group that he has. And he noticed that it always falls to some reason that the food source is the one that gives this particular finches an advantage over the other. Which is some finches here eats insects, some finches eats seeds, some finches here eats nuts, and some finches here eats the nectar from the flowering plants that is present on their environment. Alright, so this is how he came up this idea. So according to him, he hypothesized that these finches has one common ancestor which fed on one kind of food. Then when the environment changed due to the separation of these islands that we have right here, these environmental changes led to the development of another species of that particular kind of animal. So from a seed eater, it gives rise to finches that becomes an insect eater, tool using finch, grubs, and so on and then so forth. So with this one, he noticed, or he has now an idea that nature somehow gives or selects, alright, gives a challenge to this organism that makes it capable of surviving by what they call adaptation. So he coined this particular idea, what they call the natural selection. So from the word itself, natural selection, which means the nature will select the one who will survive to the environmental challenge that it gives. Alright, so alright, so the nature will also be the one who will select a group of organisms that will adapt to that environment and reproduce successfully in the future generations, so that it will completely adapt to that particular environment that the nature gave to them. Alright, so meaning to say, natural selection means nature selects who will survive. Alright, so basically, this is what they call survival of the fittest. Alright, so of the fittest. Okay, so with that, alright, so for him, or for Charles Darwin, he coined this natural selection, and this natural selection will not occur, alright, or will not occur without these particular conditions. And to achieve these particular conditions, or it needs this particular condition in order to have a result of what they call an evolutionary change on the organism. One is variation must exist among individuals in the population. So meaning to say that in order for a natural selection to occur, organisms should not be or should be varied or should be different from other group of organisms, so that it can adapt to a certain stimuli or certain changes in the particular environment. So, meaning to say, according to Charles Darwin, the organism that is more adapted to the environment tends to be different through those organisms that lives in a particular or in a different environment. Okay, so next one. The second is variation among individuals must result in differences in number of offspring surviving the next generation. Alright, so he coined this term by this particular statement explains why some organisms are very successful in reproduction. So meaning to say that the individual that they will produce will have a greater chance of survival based on the environment that they live in. Okay, so meaning to say, what we have right here, the number of offspring should be greater, and aside from greater, the number of offspring that will survive to the next generation, or the number of offspring that will survive to that particular environment should be at least greater than the one who will not survive. So meaning to say, more survivors than the deaths. Yeah. All right. Then the third one is variation must be genetically inherited. So meaning to say that this variation, all right. So this variation that we have right here is inherited through the next offspring, or to the next generation. So if the environment didn't change at all. So this particular variation that is created upon the environmental changes, alright, so will be inherited by the offspring in the long run. Okay, so these are the three conditions that Darwin said in order for an evolutionary change on our organism that will occur. Okay, so This one. Okay. Now, according to him, that the natural selection theory, so it started from one organism. Then, if one organism tends to have what they call mutation, so this particular mutation in this organism tends to create variation among this organism. And sometimes this variation creates another group of species which is similar to this organism but different in other ways. Alright, so, and one of those factors is what they call mutation. So, take note, mutation creates variation on the organism. And the other one, because of this variation, now the environment, alright, so unfavorable conditions in the environment will select those organisms which are not capable of adapting to it. So what happens, those organisms will not be able to adapt to the environment, will die. And those who will survive that unfavorable condition will tend to reproduce. So meaning to say that if you're an organism and you be able to survive that particular unfavorable conditions in the environment, then you have the chance of producing successfully. Now, so reproduction will occur, then mutations the mutations in this particular particular parent that we have right here will be passed on through their offspring. Next, if there is another unfavorable conditions that the environment gives to this organism, those organisms who are favorable will likely to reproduce again, and those organisms who adapted to these favorable conditions in the environment will tend to survive and reproduce more. This is how the natural selection occurs. Now, without these unfavorable conditions in the environment, variation will not be possible. And aside from that, no organism, alright, so organism which has unfavorable genes will stay on that particular, it will stay on its track. Okay, it will not be extinct. Now, because there is what they call selection, those who are unfavorable with those changes in the environment will likely to get extinct or die. Okay, so this is how natural selection occurs. Now, a misconception usually in natural selection is that some people said that natural selection grants organism what they need. Well, it's not. All right, just like the one on the picture. So the one is chewing down the tree bark. All right. The other one is chewing down the tree bark, and then the other one has a chainsaw. So that's the reason is because that's what they need. So no, it's not, because natural selection only occurs if the environment is not favorable to one of them. All right. So now only those who can adapt to this, only those organisms that can adapt to this unfavorable situation in the environment are the one who will go to the next level. Those who cannot will likely to die. And natural selection does not grant organisms what they need. Okay, so natural selection talks about how organisms should adapt to the environment so that it can reproduce successfully in the long run. Alright, so that is the natural selection theory by Charles Darwin. Alright, and this is because of these finches that he discovered or that he studied in the Galapagos Island. Alright, next one. Alright, this is one of the controversial theory by Charles Darwin, the theory of common descent. Alright, so because it touches how humans came to be here on Earth. Alright, so according to him that humans, the apes, the chimpanzees have one common ancestor. All right. So this particular notion enrage some people who believes that there's only one creator who created everything here on earth. All right, and we follow the image of that creator, not by the image of this monkey-looking thing that we have right here. So one of the misconception here is that humans came from monkey. No, it's not. So it's not that way. So according to Charles Darwin, that monkey or the chimpanzee, the apes, the orangutan, and also human, all right, we did not came from those three, the chimpanzees or the ape. Instead, this four organism, the ape, the chimpanzees, the orangutans, or whatsoever, and also human, came from one common ancestor. So it means that there is one what they call a family tree. So that makes the chimpanzee. Alright, so that makes the chimpanzee our cousin. Alright, so you get what I mean. So that is one common misconception that we came from monkeys. No, that is not true. So our relative or our cousin is the monkeys, the apes, and then orangutan, and we came from one common ancestor. All right. So according to Charles Darwin, that all organisms here on Earth, plants, animals, bacteria, insect, and so on and so forth, came from one common ancestor. And also, these animals have their common ancestor, the one that we have right here, this one, that branches out to give form to another group of species that we have right here. Alright, so that's according to him. Okay, so that's the theory of common descent. And upon studying the embryological development of every vertebrate animals like the fish, salamander, tortoise, chick, pig, cow, rabbit, and human, he noticed some differences or some similarities in the embryological development. So on the, I think, first week, alright, so in the first week of the development of these animals that we have right here, you cannot see any difference at all. All contains what they call pharyngeal slits, okay? All contains tail. All of them have tail. Now, if I remove number 2 and number 3 from this picture, you can't notice which one is human, which one is rabbit, and which one is so on and so forth. So, because me myself cannot tell the difference between these samples that we have right here. All of them are the same. So, what does it mean? According to Charles Darwin, that these organisms that we have right here have one common ancestor. Alright, so regardless of what kind are we have one common ancestor that gives rise to this group of organisms that we have right here. So that is the theory of common descent, according to Charles Darwin. Okay. Now, other evidences that common descent is possible, according to some modern biologists and geneticists. So, DNA and RNA codes. All right. So, what does it mean? Now, if you recall, you need three nitrogenous bases, which is called the codon. This is codon. You need this codon in order to create protein. Or should I say amino acid before protein. Alright, so it means that if bacteria can use 3-letter code and humans can use 3-letter code, so meaning to say that this particular ability is been passed along through several organisms. So all organism follows the same pattern, that it uses three nitrogenous bases in order to create amino acid. Another one is anatomical homologies. For example, our eyes is similar to the eyes of the squid. Okay, so that's one. Our coccyx is similar to the tail of the monkeys, alright, and other animals. So what does it mean? So meaning to say that there are some body parts in some organism that are identically the same and identically the same function. Alright, so next one. Alright, so chromosome fusion. Alright, there are some parts of the chromosome in our body, there are some portions of the chromosome that tend to be fused. Alright, that tend to be fused in some cases. For example, in humans, our chromosome 2 is somehow fused, and in some organism like the monkey, so human, our chromosome number 2 is fused, but in monkeys, these chromosomes are separated. Alright, separated. So it means that probably, alright, so probably our ancestor has this particular chromosome which is somehow separated. Alright, so next one, convergence. Alright, so there are some evidences. Alright, there are some evidences of common descent through convergence by some organism. Alright, so although organism lives on different environment, they tend to have differences in terms of body, but the way they are, the DNA structure and everything. Alright, so this particular these three things that we have on the first one, these three things that we have right here, due to the similarities of these particular evidences, it tends to somehow converge at certain point. Thus, the formation of what they call tree of life. So, in every tree, there is a branch, and in every tree, there is a trunk. So, this convergence lead to more and more branching that we know. Alright, next one, uniqueness. Alright, so every variation among this organism, even though they are the explanation of similarity and difference among this organism gives idea to what they call common descent. Alright, that we have right here. Alright, so this is what they called, or these are the evidences that common descent on a particular organism, or common descent theory by Charles Darwin is somehow consistent in some ways. Alright. Okay, so with that, okay, those were the theories of evolution that gives us those were the ideas about the evolutionary change on the organism that gives us idea on how organism tends to change over time, and in what reason at all, or in what reason do they change. Alright, so okay, so before I end this video, I will end up with a quote: "The change is inevitable, and growth is intentional." All right, so we cannot stop change. That is inevitable. It's up to you if you will adapt to this change. Then, if you will adapt, then you will survive. All right. If you did not adapt to that particular change, you will not be able to survive. And it means that growth means change, and change involves risk of stepping from the known to unknown. That's the reason why some fishes tend to step from the water, and then they go to the land to explore worlds above them. All right. So with that, today you have learned about the theory that is formulated by Lamarck about evolution, the theory of use and disuse, and the theory of acquired inheritance of characteristics. Alright, next one. Charles Darwin studied the Galapagos Island, and he found out that the organism there tends to adapt whatever the environmental challenges present on that particular place. Okay, so thus he formulated these particular ideas about evolution, the natural selection theory, which says that the environment selects who will survive and who will not based on the challenges that it gives to the organism. And the second one is all organisms on Earth have has one common ancestor. Alright, so that is the theory of common descent. So with that, I hope you did learn something from this video. If you do have a comment and suggestion, again, don't forget to write it down in the comment section below. Alright, so that's it, and we'll see you again to the next video. Have a nice day, and goodbye everyone.